Scotland. Let's not be down on Scotland. Let's call this the Italian job. Easy headline. That's the thumbnail. And just talk about how good Italy were, because you have to talk about how good Italy were, because they were very good and they have been very good. And people say, oh, Italy shouldn't be in the Six Nations. They're not getting any better. It's been years and years and years. I think it's been, how many years was it? 14 years or 11 years since they've won in that stadium? It was something ridiculous. Okay, it's over 10 years, okay, since they've won in that stadium. So I've played there. It's not an easy place to go and play, but they've really struggled at home. So this is all about Italy. We could talk a little bit about Scotland because I've seen that performance coming. I saw enough in the game against England. I saw enough in the game against Ireland, albeit the scoreline didn't reflect. They're two centres that are playing for Italy. Ignacio Brex, also known as Nacho Brex, if you see it come up as the title on the TV, and Tommaso Menoncello, who he's talked up on the Rugby Pod. These are, if not now, they're going to be two world-class talents. They are the backbone of their team, their physicality. They lay down the challenge on how they play, the physicality. Menoncello is 21 years old, and he is going around monstering people, absolutely monstering people. So this is going to be about Italy and how they play. Do you think about their championship so far? They lost Seb Negri early on. He came back into the squad against Scotland and performed really well. Cannoni as well in the back row, who's been massive for them. He's been out injured. So they were lacking a few ball carriers in the lead-up. Didn't take their opportunities in games, which has been the undercurrent of Italy for so many years. But that game in France, which I didn't touch on, I said I saw enough against England, I saw enough against Ireland to see that they were moving forward. That game against France, where it went down to a kick at the end where the ball fell off the tee, which happened again for Paolo Garbisi. Anyway, you couldn't ride it. They should have beaten France last week or whatever it was, a couple of weeks ago. And they didn't. And it was like, oh, same old Italy. I was worried about this game for Scotland. I had Scotland winning. I felt like we should have won. But Italy, they just don't lie down. And to win the game 31-29 and for Scotland to come back and be knocking on the door how they did is credit to Scotland. And we will talk about Scotland because there are issues in our second half performance, which we've seen over the tournament. But you've got to credit Italy. You saw how happy Michele Lamoureux, friend of the Rugby Pod, he came on and speaks about his team. You could see how happy he was. It looked like they won the Calcutta Cup after because it's actually the Massimo Cotita, my former coach from Scotland, who sadly passed away during COVID. But that was the added emotions and importance on that game. So watching Michele Lamoureux lift that and seeing Massimo Cotita's name on the back was heartwarming for me because he was an Italian player, albeit a Scotland coach, but he's a former Italian prop and he's an absolute legend. So big shout out to Massimo, his brother Marcello, all of his family and Italy for the way in which they did it. And this is why I'm so happy about rugby this weekend and smiling because the World Cup was epic. It's been a bit bitty. It's been a bit back and forth, as we know, jumping in and out of different competitions, like a week break here, a week break here during the Six Nations. But this weekend, and not all the games are finished yet, having recorded this, but these two games specifically were fantastic. The way that Italy and Scotland played, their attacking style was really, really good for the game. Just from a Scotland perspective, I'm frustrated. And I was chatting to Dan Bigger. We were going back and forth on kind of voice notes, and he was asking me about Scotland and like why do they not win these games? Like why did they nearly throw that game against Wales away? Why couldn't they beat France? You know, was it bad luck? Is it bad luck, or is there something more underneath that? I don't think in our team, when you look at the Scotland team, and this isn't a headline, this is just me talking from my experiences playing for Scotland. We don't have players that know how to win consistently at the highest level. And that was me. I was in that position as a Scotland player. And I say that when you look across the board. So you look at England, you look at Ireland, there are players in that team that have won Champions Cups, Premierships, URC, if you're talking about the Ireland team, Grand Slams, Triple Crowns. They've been there or thereabouts in big World Cup games, quarterfinals, semi-finals. As a Scotland team, we don't have that. You look across, I could go through and name the players. We just haven't got that. We've got players that could turn up on big occasions, like against England. We have games where we've hammered Australia before, down in Australia, France away during COVID. We're a team that can pull out these big moments. But when the pressure's on, internally and externally, and we're not the underdogs, it seems to be an Achilles heel for us. There's no doubt about it. We play a fantastic style of rugby, right? We've got a great attack. Finn Russell, George Horn, Ali Price, Ben White, whoever it is, Sione Tuipulotu, Hugh Jones, Duo van der Merwe, if it's Darcy Graham, Carl Rowe, Carl Steyn, Blair Kinghorn. The names are rolling off the tongue in terms of how we attack. Very good back row. I think there's two things, and I don't want to speak too frankly about my team Scotland, but we have to. One's leadership. Who's our captain? Is it Finn? Is it Rory Darge? Is it Jamie Ritchie? Is it Grant Gilchrist? Every team has a captain and a focal point. We don't have that. As much as Finn wants to, and I think he should be, there's still question marks over that. But the question marks comes over the team is around, like, what are we? Like, what does success look like for Scotland? I firmly believe that we should have went to Rome. And yes, Italy are a tough team for us. They run us close last year in the Six Nations. Blair Kinghorn scored a try at the end of the game and we won it. I knew it was going to be tough, but if we're going to be taken seriously, and this was the time to do it off the back of the World Cup, there's changes in different teams. You look at how well England played, Ireland are one or two best teams in the world. Wales are a team in transition. It's now or never. Everyone keeps talking about a generational team. I'm putting myself out there. I spoke at an event where Johnny Beattie Senior, former Scotland, British and Irish Lions player, I said on stage, this is the best Scotland team we've ever had. He disagreed. He went back into the 80s and 90s. But this is the best Scotland team we've ever had. But we're never going to get taken seriously unless we start winning. Unless we put ourselves in a position to go to Dublin in the final week on Paddy's weekend and win the Six Nations. Okay? Not a Grand Slam. And if we didn't win the Six Nations, we finish second. And that puts us higher than we've ever finished before. So you can see that progression. It's like, what have we learned from Scotland? But that is the question when you look at this with a generational team that we've got. But this is all about the Italian job. You know, you look at the under-20s, they beat Scotland under-20s 47-14 the night before the test match. 47 points to 14. So what's coming through, the way that the Kasana's got them playing, taking the ball to the line, Marius Houston as well, with their defence. The bench that came on for them is very strong, but I go back to their two centres, Ignacio Brex and Tommaso Menoncello. Phenomenal. You got put Monty Ioane and Ange Krupawatsu into that mix as well. Garbisi, you've got a bloody good team and you've got some good balls in that. So as a Scotland fan and former player, I'm gutted because I think now Ireland are going to be pissed in that final game on Paddy's weekend and we could feel the brunt of it. So I'm a bit deflated, but as a whole, with rugby, I'm happy. I'm happy for England. I've got some mates in that team and I thought they were brilliant. And it shows that Ireland are beatable, but you've got to be so on it physically, and you've got to take your opportunities. And Scotland in that second half, there was one where I think we found an edge. It was actually off the back of, this was the talking point, actually, I forgot. Well, there was a couple of points where we found the edge to go around. Obviously, Rutzer knocked the ball out of Finn's hand and the referee went back. And this is something I want to challenge. I don't know whether I'm right or I'm wrong, but that happened on the 74th minute. And the referee went back to that point because they went on the big screen. It was called in. But they didn't go back to the 74 minutes on the clock. They carried on at 77 minutes. Now, I don't know the rules as rules or the laws as laws. I will find them out. But that's a big point in the game. But we should never have been in that position. We had a 2-on-1 on the edge a couple of times that we didn't take. And Italy were deserving of their win. And they've been deserving of a win all championship. They should have beaten France as well in their last game. So this is all about Italy. Big shout out to all you Italians. From a Scotland perspective, yeah, it's not amazing, is it? But that's more of a reflection on how I feel that we should be progressing as a team. But anyway, here we go. There's a quick review after the game. You can leave your comments. You can interact. You can rinse me if you want. That's what generally happens. And we're going to be in for a hell of a ding-dong. I've not worked out the permutations of next week because I've jumped straight on after to get this out as quickly as possible. But Italy, for the Massimo Cutita Cup, Michele Lamoureux, friend of the Rugby Pod show. Big shout out to you, Seb Negri as well. He's a good lad, and enjoy that win in Rome. And Scotland will have to come again. We'll have to come again properly, because we've got the toughest test of them all, which is going to be a hurt Ireland team in Dublin on Paddy's weekend. I mean, it's going to be class, don't get me wrong, but it could be a long day at the office for Scotland unless we get our shit together.